Let me just tune in. This is Democracy and the Rule of Law. I have a barrister, Elvis Asia, a legal practitioner. Good to have you join us again.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, viewers.
And a Happy New Year. This is the first time we're seeing this year,
Yes.
right? Okay. And I also have a barrister, Adamu Ibrahim, also a legal practitioner. Good to have you join us in the program today. Since I started presenting, I'm meeting you for the first time.
Very well, very well. My pleasure.
Okay.
Good afternoon, viewers, and Happy New Year.
So let's really take a look at the first topic for discussion. The House voted 232, talking about the U.S. House of Representatives, to 197 to impeach President Donald Trump, exactly 1 week after rioters forced the lawmakers to flee from the very chamber in which they cast ballots in the fourth presidential impeachment in U.S. history. The first time the president has been impeached twice. The Senate trial will be held after the president leaves office this Wednesday. The Senate, the U.S. Upper House of Congress, will hold a trial to determine the president's guilt. But this will not happen during Mr. Trump's remaining week in office. Now, let me start from you, Barrister. The president is leaving office. Why still trying to impeach him? Why do you think so?
I think it's essentially to send a clear message, not just to this president, but any other future president who may want to incite people to violence and illegality and breach of law. What they are trying to do in the U.S. is that they're trying to maintain their institutions. The last 4 or 5 years, we have seen a president who appears to have defied all odds. Is pretty much against what we have come to know the U.S. For, with inflammatory statements, and all of that. And the last time he was impeached, but it didn't get through at the Senate. This time around, you can see that it was a clear case of an attempt to send a message, because even members of his political party, at least about 10 of them, supported the Democrats, to make this second impeachment. So for me, it's essentially, basically, to send a message to, and I believe he deserves to be impeached. I've listened to his speech at Leaves on many occasions, and the only conclusion you can reach from that speech is that you're actually asking people to do something outside of what is outside of the Constitution, to take up back power. Because after the elections, we saw that there was this challenge by the president and his legal team. They've gone to all courts in the American system. We're talking here about democracy and the rule of law. The rule of law demands that when you feel aggrieved, you approach the court. And the court, it's the final arbiter on most of these issues. And the courts have spoken all the way to the Supreme Court. And then you gather people together and you're telling them, oh, look, we have to fight like hell. We have to get the power back. We won the election. In fact, he actually told them to go to the Capitol. And he said they should go and protect those who are trying to perhaps do his bidding. And he even said that some of the senators and members of Congress do not deserve that protection. It would have been very, very funny if the U.S., the Congress, if the Congress didn't come out the way they have done to send a message. So I have no doubt. Yes, we might begin to think of whether or not whether you're going to skate through at the Senate, because you require a two-third majority to finally convince him there. After a
which
trial.
means by calculation they will need at least 17 Republicans.
They will need 17 Republicans, because you need about 67. Right now, I think it's about 50-50 thing with the vice president. When the Democratic vice president comes in, then the Democrats will have the edge in the event of a tie. But right now, you need 2/3, and it's pretty much not going to be so easy. Although you can't rule it out. I didn't expect that 10 Congress members to join the Democrats at the Congress. But a lot of people, you can see, a lot of people are genuinely angry with the president. many of them tolerated him for this long, but you can see that some of them are now coming out to speak against the president. So it's really possible that there might be a conviction. Although, whether or not you can say that his speech actually amounts to a clear case of inciting insurrection, it's another thing entirely. But this is a political process. It's not a conventional court situation. If it's a conventional trial, you may have challenges with
trying to prove
First Amendment rights and all of that. But this is a political situation. The Senate is not bound to follow
the normal
follow the conventional process of proof beyond reasonable doubt. So it's a political process. And
I mean, the millions of tweets, as it were.
Exactly. So,
it's enough.
So this is a good thing for the American. I mean, you see, America has become more like the the model for other parts of the world. And seeing what we have seen, particularly in the last few days with the invasion of the Capitol, sending this message is a good thing for the American system.
So now some Republicans finally are coming out to condemn it. Why did you think it took them this long? I mean, for a very long time, if you ask me, I think the enablers should also be found guilty, because, I mean, we have a president that for his inception, since he came into the presidency, has been dividing the nation, and you have party members backing him, even though they knew that what he was doing was wrong. Did they have to go this far? The president had to go this far before Republicans finally, some of them, come out to condemn him. So, is it an issue of party loyalty versus loyalty to the Constitution?
First and foremost, when you look at the way and manner the current U.S. president emerged, you will understand with me that certainly the Republicans need to protect their party. It was a very keen contest between the Democrats and the Republicans when the president was vying for the office of the president before he eventually became the winner and won the election.
That was against Hillary Clinton.
That was against Hillary Clinton. You also agree with me that having come that far and through that process, certainly they have to protect their party. They have to be so loyal to the party. It's just unfortunate that the man who actually became the president, who is also the president at the moment, is more or less like disappointing the Republicans. Initially, they felt they have gotten somebody who really carry on with their own principles of democracy in U.S., their own principles
and their conservative
rulership, yes, and their conservative way of life in the U.S. But unfortunately, the man seems to be disappointing them, and they have to an extent, tolerate him because of the party differences and the loyalty which they have for the party. But at a point in time, they now discover that, look, America first. Whatever interest you have to protect, particularly your political party, America has to come first, because that is the song in America. Every American sees America first before any other thing. So having that at the back of their mind, they just felt, okay, let's go back to the drawing board, America first, before any other person. And that was why they had to
tolerate
him at least for this long, to an extent that it got to a point that they say, look, we can no longer tolerate you again, you have to go. And when the House of Representatives initiated this impeachment move, which is constitutionally backed by the American Constitution, talking about Article 1, Section 2, that gives the American House of Representatives the powers to commence impeachment proceedings against the president. Yes, they felt that the president has beaten more than he can chew in the American politics, that they can no longer tolerate him to that extent, that they have to commence this impeachment proceedings against him, and he was impeached. At least it's no longer news that for the second time he has been impeached. And you could also agree with me that those who even stood in the forefront of his impeachment are not only the Democrats. Members of his party are also part of it. And in fact, at a point in time, the vice president also, I think the president lost the support of the vice president to an extent. That's to tell you that, unlike what happened in other climes like in Nigeria, where if somebody is doing anything wrong, they say, oh, he's a member of my party, he does no wrong. It doesn't happen like that in America. You could see it has been displayed so far. And even in the Senate, you could also see that those who are vying for the removal of the president are not only the Democrats alone. Even the Republicans are part of those who want him removed. But whether it will scale through, that's a thing that is of doubtful moment at the moment. You never can say whether they will have a change of mind in the last minute. But what they are doing at the moment is a welcome development in democracy. Not only in America, but a signal to the entire world.
Now, talking about a country that has been like an example for other countries, wishing to practice democracy the way it should be practiced, how did you think it get this bad, for them, for a country that is known all over the world to be well organized in terms of their democratic system, and for a very long time that they knew how to put, talking about the system of checks and balance, they've been able to practice the system so well that the president wouldn't have this overwhelming power over the system and over the constitution. But clearly, Trump got this power, so powerful that, I don't know. So how did it get so bad? How did Trump get to amass this level of power? By overwhelming the legislatures.
No, first and foremost, we have to understand the way the American system works, which is clearly different from what the man at the helm of affairs was doing, talking about the president. The American system of governance, the democracy, when you look at it, it's something near perfect. Why do I say it's...
Or give us the appearance of near perfect.
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. Why do I say so? You discover that in the American system, the president cannot have overwhelming powers. So also the Senate cannot have overwhelming powers. Not to talk of also the judiciary does not have absolute powers. These powers are shared in between these three arms of government. But you find a situation whereby the president is arrogated to himself certain powers that he does not even possess.
And why did the legislators and the judiciary have to tolerate him for that long? Because I think that was part of what destroyed the whole system, or as it were, exposed.
You must also understand that to an extent, when he started misbehaving, I'll say, because in the American system, there's what they call misdemeanor. There are offenses they call misdemeanor. There's an offense they call high crimes. Okay. What the man has done will amount to, because the definition of what amounts to a demeanor is not clearly defined in the American Constitution. So what amounts to high crime is not clearly defined in the American Constitution. So what the Congress will do is, when they watch the behavior of a president, it is for the Congress now to say, okay, this behavior amounts to high crime or misdemeanor. So when the House of Representatives, who are saddled with the responsibility of impeaching the president, discovered that he was not acting in accordance with the American spirit or the American Constitution, they called him to order and commenced the process of his impeachment. That is why he stands in history as one of the American presidents who has been impeached twice in a period of 4 years. Twice he has been impeached in a period of 4 years. That's to tell you how dissatisfied they are with his conduct and how intolerant they are to an extent with his conduct. And that's to tell you that his conduct is not in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. If his conduct were to be in accordance with the conduct of, with the spirit and letters of the Constitution, you will discover that nobody will raise an eyebrow. But the way it is at the moment, you could see that not only Americans, but the entire world that practices real democracy are not happy with what Donald Trump is doing at the moment.
Okay, let me hear your view on that, sir.
Well, I think the reason why Trump was able to get away, so to say, for a long time, is because of the party loyalty issue. For a very long time, the Republican Party were trying to ensure that they protect their own party. They protect their own values, their conservative views, the issues about abortion, evangelicals, and you see, from the election in 2016, you can see that the kind of people that got Trump elected, the Republican Party needed to pacify them by standing with Trump, because going away from Trump would have meant that empowering the other party, and so but they took it for too long. You can see that even the vice president was always supportive of the president. Some of the things that I never used to see in the American presidency, where even in any gathering or whatever, you see the president eulogizing and celebrating the president. It was quite strange. You see that again with the majority leader in the Senate. So for me, it's actually a little bit too late in the day for them to come out. They cannot be excused from what has become of the Trump's presidency. Without them, Trump would not have gotten this far. We saw, a president that was against the press, a president that would expressly insult pressmen and even on some occasions send them out of the White House. These are undemocratic tendencies. These are things that you never expected to see with the American system. But in the name of protecting the political party, these values were almost eroded. And it's, thank God for Democrats who, of course, also had their own political agenda in ensuring that
they empower their own party.
Yeah, they empower their party
their own agenda.
And then fought Trump. Without them, it would have been very sad for America. A lot of these other people in the Republican Party, they saw that these stories, for example, about fraudulent electoral process were not true. If you look at Georgia, for example, Georgia is a Republican, let me say it was a Republican state. The election was conducted by Republicans. So for somebody to come and start saying, oh, there was fraud, people, he blamed everybody, what do you call it, those who created the electoral apps or whatever, he blamed them, blamed the electoral officials.
He blamed even the Republican senators
in the leaked communication with the Republican chief of Secretary of State of Georgia. He was practically asking them to go and look for votes for him. It was at that point. That was when I expected to see, figures in the Republican Party coming out to, curtail these excesses, because he went through the court system, like I said earlier, and even judges that he appointed refused his challenge because they were frivolous. We're talking about America. No system is perfect. But I can tell you the kind of monumental fraud he was talking about, there's no way it will escape all the security agencies, and one of them would not pick it up. So for me, the Republican Party, the Senate, which was controlled by the Republican Party, the Vice President, all of these people that became praise singers for the president, they are responsible for this. They empowered him.
So do you think the fact that the Senate was majorly led by the Republican kind of gave him
that was what it was relying on, and nothing against him scaled through the Senate, but that shouldn't be the case. Unfortunately, like I said earlier, because they wanted to protect their party, they threw away the values of the American democracy, the beauty of the American democracy, and that was what got us to the point where people are now invading the Capitol. This whole thing is a sequence. The way the human mind works, once you are allowed to go scot-free with little things, you begin to increase it. And that's how the thing has increased. And it got to a point where this now became something that nobody can tolerate. I mean, because if you look at what his speech, he said that they needed to fight like hell, and that they should go to the capital. I mean, the only way it could have got to that level is because of the protection that he was given. This is somebody that has never produced his tax returns. Nobody in that kind of situation should be president of the United States. And even when you are, irrespective of the political party, the system should ensure that you account. People have talked about the fact that this man has never been paying tax. He's not, and he's even admitted that, look, I take advantage of the system. I take advantage of the laws. I mean, and then you have people at the Senate, when the Congress initiates anything to try to hold him to account, they block it. So for me, the Republican Party is responsible for this. The way the system works in America, no president can, become so irresponsible unless, the political system enables it, and that's what we saw.
So what are the dangers? What are the advantage, the disadvantage, to all these, for countries, say like Nigeria, that we've been crying very hard about, especially in this administration, for a lot of things that's happening, and most of the time we do refer, go to America, go to UK, go and see how it is practiced there. Why not we take that? And the people we're using as example have been largely disappointed. So
I agree that they've been disappointed, but again, they have also come out to show that their institutions still work. Because if you were in a system like ours, you wouldn't hear anything about voter fraud. You wouldn't hear the president complaining that elections were rigged. The fact that the president himself is complaining that elections are rigged against him shows that the system is working. It shows that he cannot just control, he cannot just determine who wins elections. And don't forget, the American system gives so much powers to the state to even control the voting process. You don't have that here. Here, he's the president that dictates who win elections. Forget all those stories that you hear. If the president is against you, even as a governor, it's almost impossible to win elections. We saw what happened in so many states, including Edo and other states. If the president is sitting on the fence and say, look, let them fight it out, you will see that elections will truly reflect the will of the people. The moment we have, and it's not just it's not just Buhari alone. I mean, this is the problem we have in this country. Even with Jonathan and every other person that has come and gone, what we saw was a situation where you just order INEC, and with a phone call. We saw a phone call in all those states, and they are so shameless. They actually talk about the fact that there was if not for the president's call, So, I mean, the American system still holds its place, I must say. And the fact that Trump has been impeached twice actually also tells you that the system is working. And then again, you can see a lot of people have resigned from the Trump presidency in protest against his actions. And that's the kind of things you want to see. We don't see that here in Nigeria. So I see a lot of people say, "Oh, okay, look at America. America has failed."
They say we don't resign. We fight to the end.
Our system is so bad that we are looking for excuse. We want to say that even it's not like other systems are perfect. But American system has shown that the institutions work because institutions make things work well for the people, not individuals. I kept telling people, I said, look, they said Buhari has come to fight corruption. Buhari cannot fight corruption. Buhari is in Aso Rock. Does he know what's happening here right now? Does he know what's happening in the court registries and in other parts of the country? What do? You ensure that it's an institution that checks people. Human beings are, I think we overrate human beings. Human beings are animals. We're probably even worse than other kinds of animals in terms of the way we reason. We are just, there's there's an innate thing in the man to do the wrong things. So you need institutions. If not for the institutions they have, forget it. You won't be able to get someone like Trump in an African country. You won't get him out. and don't forget, he has a lot of support. Unlike here, where even without support, you are still able to, you know, bamboozle the system, win elections. We've just seen what happened in Uganda, for example, where the president cut off the social media, did whatever they like. I saw them beating up people, you know, and all of that. But the American system has tried to prevent things like that. I mean, the way Trump has been crying all over the place is a testimony to the fact that the American system works. Because no
matter how powerful he thinks he is, he has his limitations.
The kind of person he is, he wants everything to go his way, irrespective of what.
Okay, let me hear your side on this.
Yeah. By way of comparison, you still have to give it to the Americans. They have an edge over African countries, I would say, when it comes to democratic tendencies.
Now, but the last 4 years have actually brought out the Africanism, if there's any word like that, in the US. Because, I mean, the hallmark of the whole thing was, of course, the Capitol riot, where the whole world have come out to condemn. And some of the statements we were hearing, sadly to say, that the continent or the country you were calling S-hold, country, you are now acting like those countries, which means it's actually the same. Some may be tempted to argue that it doesn't matter that it is America.
Well, generally, to every rule, they say there are exceptions. Democracy, compared to other forms of governance, you can say is completely perfect. Why do I say so? You know, for a system to be perfect, only God knows, only God can say this thing is perfect and that is not perfect. Why do I have to go this far? Democracy, you can't say is evolving at the moment, but perfection, you can't say it has gotten to that point where you say it is perfect and everything must always fall in place. No, you have a Trump who has tendencies to act in difference to the established norms, rules, and values. That is the kind of person he is. And I see him as an exception to a democratic institution. Because this is somebody who doesn't want to act in accordance with the democratic tendencies of the US. He wants everything. He's a selfish man, I would say.
In other words, he's a rebel.
Oh, to the
American norm and American
which
system.
we know them with. He's a rebel. And this is somebody, you will say, having that at the back of your mind, you will say that he is an exception to the democratic institution, which we know democracy to be. In the US. Unlike in African countries like in Nigeria, like Uganda, we just had their own election where the president just had his way and everything. Also what is happening in Nigeria too. Kano State just had their own chairmanship and councillorship election. And it's unfortunate that they say no any other party won a seat in the councillorship election and chairmanship election that was held in Kano. Throughout the state. Which means the all political bigwigs we have in other parties have all become members of a single political party, which is not possible. That is to tell you how we have ridiculed democracy in this part of the decline. But compared to the American system, they came out and said, no, we can't tolerate this. A few individuals cannot scuttle the efforts of an institution or the efforts of our founding fathers who have toiled and worked to bring in democracy. And that's why they rose up to the challenge immediately and caught the excesses of the president. And like what they are doing at the moment is to send a signal. Yes, the tenure is coming to an end in a few hours or few days to come. Tomorrow is 19th, tomorrow is 18th, 1920, few hours. Yes, but that will not deter them from doing what they want to do. You know why? They have the powers to sanction a president or any public office holder who is found wanting or guilty in the trial. they can prevent him from holding any public office in the future, which is not like that in Nigeria. If it were to be in Nigeria or any of these African countries, the next thing is, oh, after all, the man's tenure is coming to an end. What are you impeaching him for? Their own impeachment, once you impeach and you remove somebody from office, that does not mean that that's the end of the world. No. Automatically, the man can be barred from holding any public office in the US. And that's a very welcome development, and that is good for democracy.
More like a political suicide.
Very well, very well.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody will appoint him for any political or public office any longer in the US until he is pardoned. And for you to be pardoned, it's a very difficult process in the US too, unlike what happens in Nigeria or these African countries, where if the president so like your face, he will just go there and say, don't worry, when I become president, I'll forgive you all your sins, and you become a new person in Nigeria, and you'll be voted for, you can hold public offices and everything like that. But come what may, head or tail, you must give it to the Americans. Their system, though not perfect, but at least works. It's something that we can still learn from.
So finally, before we go, do you think the impeachment process will scale through at the Senate?
Well, it's I doubt it. I doubt it
because they still got some strong loyalists in the Senate.
I doubt it. Although I mean, given the current response by bipartisan response to what happened at the Capitol by his supporters, you will see a lot of movement in direction of convicting him. Just like we saw about 10 congressmen at the U.S. Congress in the Republican Party joining the Democrats. We are likely to see, some Republicans
going the other way.
Going the other way. We don't know whether they can get 17, because 17 is a lot of number.
It is.
17 is a lot of number, because they could only get 10 in the Congress. So I don't know whether they will be able to get 17 at the Senate.
So do you think it will scale through?
At the moment, I cannot say whether it is scale through or will not scale through. It all depends on the mood of the congressman. But don't forget that he has been impeached already. What is remaining now is his trial, which...
But the impeachment doesn't really mean anything without the Senate's...
without the trial, very
exactly.
well, very well. Unlike what is happening in Nigeria.
But at least the impeachment, as you said before, still sent a clear message, whether or not it was found wanted in the Senate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sends a message.
Okay. You're still